see the Department of Justice documents here.
I mean, are you kidding me right now? Who authorized this? Who allowed this woman from the New York Post to just stroll through it like she's in a museum and checking up and observing everything?
The Sugar Bowl is back on. Kickoff is going to take off very shortly. If I don't get this damn thing done, we're going to be in real trouble.
In what can only be described as one of the saddest New Year's in American history, multiple attacks across the U.S. took many innocent lives and left many questions in their aftermath. Now, my heart goes out to all the victims of this evil brutality. And while we all mourn for our fellow Americans, I think we also need to ask another question. What the hell is going on in Fort Bragg? We will also discuss what the Las Vegas incident has to do with those drones and why we're likely being kept in the dark about it. By now, I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about, but there is a chance that many people don't know about the Fort Bragg mystery because the legacy media has immediately termed it as a conspiracy theory. So, in order to get everyone in the loop, I would like to start things off with this clip.
Now, I would like to acknowledge a couple of things because I know what's going on in the social media world, and there are a number of things in this case that are similar to the attack in New Orleans. We do know that our subject here served in the military. In fact, he's a current member of the military. Both of the subjects served at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. What we do know about that is it's a very large military base, and we have no record that they served in the same unit or even at the same years at Fort Bragg, something that continues to remain under investigation. I also know that they both served in Afghanistan in 2009. We don't have any evidence that they were in the same province in Afghanistan, the same location, or the same unit. Again, something else that remains under investigation.
So basically, we find out that the men behind these attacks were not only veterans, but also served at Fort Bragg. Now, this was already a red flag, but things only got weirder when it was revealed by multiple sources that both trucks used during these attacks were rented through the same app.
And we also know, of course, that they both used the rental company Turo to rent their vehicles.
And this isn't even the full extent of this crazy coincidence. Just last month, Tony Saruga, who happens to be a whistleblower, made the claim that Ryan Ruth also visited Fort Bragg. In his tweet, he said, "After extensive cell phone, laptop, and vehicle GPS data analysis going back 4 years, Ryan Wesley Ruth visited Fort Bragg 147 times, staying overnight on 29 occasions." So we have Ryan Ruth and Matthew Livelsberger, both of whom tried to eliminate our president, and both were apparently at Fort Bragg, and for some reason, the media doesn't see anything wrong with that. As you can expect, it didn't take long for people to start putting two and two together, and a lot of them started posting videos on platforms like X to raise awareness about this Fort Bragg connection.
Both of the men that were behind the attacks yesterday have deep connections to each other. Both of these men, the one behind the Cybertruck Vegas outside Trump Tower attack and the man behind the New Orleans attack, both of them served in the U.S. Army. Their connection does not stop there. In 2012, they were both stationed in Fort Bragg together. Both of the cars yesterday that were used to carry out the acts of violence were rented through the Turo app. Turo is essentially the Airbnb of car renting. You can rent out your own car, and the cars that were used yesterday were both rented out through the Turo app. Now, there are a lot of people in the U.S. Army. There's a lot of people that are stationed at Fort Bragg. And there are also a lot of people that use the Turo app. But to have all of that and then also carry out what they carried out yesterday on the same day in separate cities, it doesn't. I just ran the numbers. It doesn't add up. And we all know Rule 18 of Jack Mack's life rules. Coincidences don't exist. Coinky-dinks don't exist. And it's also worth noting, on top of all of this, Ryan Ruth, the individual that was arrested for trying to assassinate Donald Trump on his golf course in Florida, visited Fort Bragg 147 times over the past 4 years, staying overnight on 29 occasions. I don't like that.
The FBI, on the other hand, has made it clear that there is no connection between these two men.
But at this point, currently, and this is another another fact I want to be clear on, we do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack is involved in this attack except for Shamsa Din Jabbar, the subject you've already been briefed on.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm certainly not in the habit of trusting anything the FBI says. Now, the reason why I think this Fort Bragg connection should be investigated is because that military base has a very peculiar history. Fort Bragg has a reputation for being a central hub for psyop training and operations. It is home to the U.S. Army John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School, known informally as SWCS. If you're wondering what happens at this special warfare school, its purpose is to recruit, assess, select, train, and educate the U.S. Army Civil Affairs, Psychological Operations, and Special Forces soldiers by providing training and education, developing doctrine, integrating force development capability, and providing career management. So basically, the facility trains these soldiers for psyops, and looking at the history of psyops attempted by the U.S. military, I can tell you these soldiers are being trained to do some of the craziest things you could ever imagine. For instance, in the Vietnam War, the 6th PSYOP Battalion launched Operation Wandering Soul in the late 1960s. The operation involved broadcasting spooky audio tracks throughout the jungles at night in the hopes of scaring and demoralizing the Viet Cong. One such audio track is the infamous Ghost Tape Number 10, which was typically broadcast from loudspeakers affixed to Army helicopters or Navy swift boats. The goal was to prey upon the common belief among the Vietnamese that if a deceased person did not receive a proper burial, then their soul would be left wandering the land in unbearable pain and suffering. And we have even used psyops against our own politicians. In 2011, Rolling Stones accused Lieutenant General William Caldwell of allegedly asking psyops personnel to help him persuade legislators to support budget increases. And these are the psyops we actually know about. Just imagine the kinds of things they are not telling us. So is it that far off for people to ask questions about these latest attacks? For instance, filmmaker Robbie asks, so the Green Beret, identified as the Vegas truck bomber, was burnt beyond recognition and his weapons were disfigured, but his military ID was intact? What luck! Oh, and out of all guns, he shot himself with a Desert Eagle. Does this make sense to you? Another crazy thing about the Green Beret is that he was supposedly a huge Trump fan. His uncle has said Matthew used to have all patriotic stuff on Facebook. He was 100% loving the country. He loved Trump and he was always a very, very patriotic soldier, a patriotic American. It's one of the reasons he was in special forces for so many years. It wasn't just one tour of duty. His uncle raised another very important question during this interview. In his interview with The Independent, he said, Matt was a very skilled warrior, and he would be able to make, if it was him, and if he did this, he would have been able to make a more sophisticated explosive. He was what you might call a super soldier. If you ever read about the things he was awarded and the experience he had, some of it doesn't make sense when he had the skills and ability to make something more, let's say, efficient. His skills were enormous from what he had been taught in the military. He could have fashioned a bomb that would have obliterated half of that hotel if he seriously wanted to hurt others. And he's not wrong. Matthew was a member of Special Forces, so his actions certainly don't match his skill set. He was, in fact, such an elite soldier that he even competed in the Ultimate Soldier Challenge.
Matthew Livelsberger and his partner Tim Kennedy, both Green Berets, appeared on the Ultimate Soldier Challenge 12 years ago on the History Channel.
But this isn't even the craziest information we have about Livelsberger. In the latest episode of the Sean Ryan Show, the intelligence agent and influencer Sam Shoemate shared an email from Livelsberger which paints a very different picture of this event. In the email, Matthew allegedly states, in case I do not make it to my decision point or on to the Mexican border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until January 1st and keep my identity private until then. First off, I am not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. What we have been seeing with drones is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems. powered aircraft by most recently China in the East Coast, but throughout history, the US. Only we and China have this capability. Our open location for this activity in the box is below. And here's the location according to Sean Ryan. As you can see, it's near Lincoln County, Nevada. The email continues, China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they used the balloon for SIGINT and SIR, which are also part of the integrated comm system. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned drones. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they want it. It's checkmate. USG needs to give the history of this, how we are employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them, and what the way forward is. China is posed to attack anywhere on the East Coast. I've been followed for over a week now from likely Homeland or FBI, and they are looking to move on me and are unlikely going to let me cross into Mexico, but won't because they know I am armed and I have a massive vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, or VBIED. I've been trying to maintain a very visible profile and have kept my phone, and they are definitely digitally tracking me. I have knowledge of this program and also war crimes that were covered up during airstrikes in Nimroz province, Afghanistan in 2019 by the admin, DOD, DEA, and CIA. I conducted targeting for these strikes of over 125 buildings. 65 were struck because of civilian casualties that killed hundreds of civilians in a single day. United States forces Afghanistan continued strikes after spotting civilians on initial surveillance. It was supposed to take 6 minutes and scramble all aircraft in U.S. Central Command. The UN basically called these war crimes, but the administration made them disappear. I was part of that cover-up with US FORA and Agent Redacted of the DEA. So I don't know if my abduction attempt is related to either. I worked with GEN Miller's intelligence operations staff on this, as well as the response to Bala Murghab. AOBS commander at the time, Redacted, can validate this. You need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war, because this is a mutually assured destruction situation. For vetting, my LinkedIn is Matt Berg, or Matthew Livelsberger, an active duty 18Z out of 1-10. My profile is public. I have an active top secret sensitive compartmented information with UAP USAP access. As you can see, this email makes some very scary claims. And if it really was from Livelsberger, his death really isn't what it looks like. Now the investigators had this to say about this email.
Behind you.
Yes, Kevin Nyes with NBC News. How would you describe his state of mind in these final days, given everything that you read from his notes app and the manifesto that you see that you reference going around in the podcast? Have you guys been able to rule out that it was not from him, or is it still up in the air that it could have been from him?
So the question is, how would I describe his state of mind in the manifesto that was described on the podcast? Have we been able to determine whether that was from him or not? And I'll answer the first part is, I'm not comfortable giving you state of mind just yet. I certainly am leaning a particular way, but again, I'd like to be factual to you. I think when you read the documents that we're going to give you a link to at the end of this press conference, that you can go in and make some of your own assumptions about what that is. But I will tell you that part of my hesitation on that is, I know that we have a lot more documents and number of things for us to uncover, and so I want to be able to provide to you only the factual information when I have it. And so I'm not gonna opine on what I believe his state of mind was at that particular time, but certainly you can see some troubling aspects in his personal life as well. And I don't know if you want to address the second part, Spencer.
Yeah, so in terms of the so-called manifesto that's circulating online, we have strong evidence to suggest that it was the subject that wrote it, but we haven't conclusively proven that yet. And that evidence relates to other evidence that we're finding that we're able to compare that lead us to believe it was in fact him who sent it.
The police, however, are still certain that this was a case of unaliving by a soldier suffering from PTSD. To back their claims, they also showed notes he left in his phone app.
One is in the note application. He seemed to have two letters. One letter in particular, as you can see here, this is an excerpt from that letter. He says, fellow service members, veterans, and all Americans, time to wake up. We are being led by weak and feckless leadership who only serve to enrich themselves. He goes on to explain a variety of other grievances and issues, some political, some personal, a variety of other things which we will do our best to release very quickly here. But then there's a second letter where there's some more excerpts. This one seems to be dated after the fact in that notes application. And in there, you can read a couple of the excerpts. We are the United States of America, the best country, people to ever exist. But right now, we are terminally ill and headed towards collapse. This was not a terrorist attack. It was a wake-up call. Americans only pay attention to spectacles and violence. What better way to get my point across than a stunt with fireworks and explosives? Why did I personally do it now? I need to cleanse my mind of the brothers I've lost and relieve myself of the burden of the lives I took. I'd like to just also expand on that and understand that these are just excerpts. In there, he does offer additional information that is varying on the spectrum in terms of political grievances, issues about the conflicts elsewhere, not here, domestic issues, societal issues, a variety of other things, including personal challenges as well.
Some people also point out the fact that Matthew's wife broke up with him just days before the explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. However, his conversation with his ex-girlfriend was anything but sad or depressed. In her interview, she said he was really excited to be driving a cybertruck.
Livelsberger texting, I rented a Tesla Cybertruck. It's the expletive. Followed minutes later by, I feel like Batman or Halo.
She also showed videos of him genuinely enjoying himself while on his way to Las Vegas. And just like us, she also says she doesn't understand how he could go from being so happy to taking his own life in such a manner. And that's the biggest question we have here. Do you think this guy who looks so full of life just decided to end it all? Now, the New Orleans attacker has also left a lot of questions. In a now deleted YouTube video, the guy looked like any other real estate agent.
Good evening. I'm Shamsuddin Jabbar, property manager with Blue Meadow Properties and team lead at the Midas Group at Core Realty. I just want to say hello and let you know a little bit about me. So I'm born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, and now live in Houston. And I've been here all my life. With the exception of traveling for the military, where I spent 10 years as a human resources specialist and IT specialist, where I learned the meaning of great service and what it means to be responsive and take everything seriously, dotting I's and crossing T's to make sure that things go off without a hitch.
For some reason, he just decided to give up his real estate license, move to a neighborhood with goats roaming around in his backyard, and became radicalized. And then there was this crazy situation where a New York reporter just walked into the house of the New Orleans attacker and started recording it as if it was an exhibition or something.
It hasn't even been 48 hours, and you have the New York Post walking through the house of the terrorist. Why don't they have it taped off? Why are they not saying this is an ongoing investigation? We can't allow any of the press to come in here and just do a tour. This woman is walking through the terrorist's home as if it's a museum. Oh, look at this. They have a Quran up here. Oh, but there is one Bible down here. Let me make sure I point this out. But there's more stuff in here about the Quran. Really? And then she's walking through and she's looking and says, oh, there's a prayer rug right there. Like, it's just fascinating to walk through this guy's home and just look at how he was living. I mean, are you kidding me right now? Who authorized this? Who allowed this woman from the New York Post to just stroll through it like she's in a museum and checking up and observing everything? People, this is not normal. Y'all let me know if this is normal. I'm going to show you some of this clip. I'm going to show you some of this, and I'm also going to put it in here to where you can find the original clip too, okay? But this is amazing to see happening here. I thought the FBI was all over this. Is this the new norm? I mean, how do we know she's not going to contaminate the crime scene? Because it now is part of the crime scene, because this is his home. Make it make sense.
He had this work area here. lots of different chemicals splayed around, and different electronics. This is, again, a work setup.
As you can imagine, a lot of people were not too happy about it. Now, the reporter clarified in her tweet, the FBI didn't show up to Nola suspect's address until 1 p.m. today. We were on scene before. No one came out of the home or answered the door. Okay, let that sink in. A reporter got there before the FBI and then magically found all the evidence lined up inside the house and was allowed to record it as well. Tell me this doesn't look staged. And if all of this wasn't mysterious enough, Senator John Kennedy also said some very strange things in a press conference.
What I want to ask from the federal government, catch these people. Catch these people. And then tell the American people the truth. Now, I don't want you to tell us yet anything that's going to interfere with your investigation. And there are things that I've been told that I think are true that I'm not sharing with you today because it could interfere with their investigation. But after we get to the bottom of this, they need to tell the American people the truth. And the people of New Orleans the truth. And the people of America the truth. I think the mayor and the governor are very wise to postpone this ball game for 24 hours. There's just too much stuff we don't know. And it's just not worth it. But I guess my final point is, I will promise you this: I will, when it is appropriate and this investigation is complete, you will find out what happened and who was responsible. Or I will raise fresh hell, and I will chase those in the federal government who are responsible for telling us what happened, like they stole Christmas.
Don't we know who did this? Why is he speaking as if he knows the real perpetrator was someone else? And while the entire country was in shock, the President of the United States came out of his hiding hole and gave this bizarre press briefing.
And we're going to share the facts as soon as I learn them so the American public doesn't have to wonder. In the meantime, like I said last night, New Orleans is a city of tremendous spirit. You can't keep it down. You really can't. And we're seeing that today. The Sugar Bowl is back on. Kickoff is going to take off very shortly. If I don't get this damn thing done, we're going to be in real trouble.
At this point, I can't even imagine the kind of damage this man can do in the few days he has left as the President of the United States. Now, I know I've raised some very uncomfortable questions in this video. However, I believe someone has to ask such questions, and I would love to know what you guys think about all of this. So feel free to share your thoughts with everyone in the comments section below. As always, I truly appreciate you watching today's video, and I hope to see you in the next one.